area, we farm near 3 rivers, and we'd have a lot of river bottom ground, so it's very hard for us to go out early in the season and plant a corn crop. So we decide, and a lot of times those acres that are on marginal ground, which is a low ground, get planted into soybeans repeatedly. And where milo fit, or sorghum fit our rotational purposes, was to break that cycle. And a lot of times it as you get later into the season, the corn crop will fail for us, because in August it gets really hot and dry in different areas, and sorghum seems to withstand that. And the yields just keep proving themselves better every year as we learn more about the crop, and it's just really fitting our rotation.
Well, for us, it really suits our soils and our rainfall and our temperature all the way around.
Yes, I'd add to the dependability of the crop. Very few yield problems, very stable through the years. A local market, which is very important, and people fighting over your milo. They want to compete with each other for your crop, so that's very important to us.
I was just talking to some neighbors that are inquiring a lot more about sorghum. In our county, there's probably about 3 of us that raise sorghum, and I think this year there are probably going to be maybe 7 or 8 more. So it's a new crop for us. It's been raised in the past, but we always didn't plant it at the proper time. We didn't put the right seeding rate. We didn't fertilize it enough like we should have. And as more technologies come around, especially with the use of fungicides and learning more about it, it's really becoming a crop that we had underestimated, and it's becoming a better fit for everyone in our area.
One of the things I learned this year from the weather, and we recorded approximately around 2 inches of rain during our whole growing season this year. One thing the weather showed me was, and reiterated in my mind, was the practice of early moisture for crop in milo and late. Early on, our milo at 3-4 leaf stage, the ground temperature was 130 degrees. I mean, you're burning your hands on the ground. Air temperatures of 110. The milo could not root down, so our only choice was to start watering early on when we usually don't water. We hear from our parents and grandparents, milo can go all the way up to the boot stage and you can nearly burn it up and then water it and make a crop. Well, the other end of it is when we intensely watered early this year, it sets that head size and the seed count in the head much larger than I usually can see. And then late in the season we had the same drought pressure, so I ended up watering later than I usually do. Ended up having a lot heavier pounds per bushel, and so I believe that attributed to a lot of my success this year was actual more intense watering during the times that I might need to concentrate on a normal year.
Found out we were under-fertilizing in our situation, and this hydraulic probe was it's really helped our situation. We can go out and grab a lot of soil tests in a relatively short time.
I think one of the game changers on our farm and our operation has been we've been playing with population. Several of my friends in here laugh at me about population because they kind of wonder how can you get these yields from this lower population. Once again, you have to know your sorghum hybrids you are planting, because there are some that do not tiller like others, but the particular one that I like to use has found over the years there's a huge benefit in our area from lower population. Allows the sorghum to tiller during good times, not to tiller so much during bad times. It allows for a lot larger stalk. Where we're from, we don't have the rainfall that other people have, and so I don't know about y'all, but I don't like scraping milo off the ground, and it allows us to have a lot better harvestability. And I believe that was a game changer this year, was because of the drought. I was able to plant lower population. The milo worked with me during the hard times, waited for the water, and then responded.
In our area, when we first started raising sorghum about 5 years ago, it was our fertility program. We didn't treat it as well as we had in the as our corn crop, and so we did a few experiments and realized what you were saying, that it really, to manage high yielding sorghum, you have to throw a lot more at it. And we did that, but the biggest game changer, especially with irrigation in our area, they call us Little Egypt, because we assimilate the overseas, but the humidity is really high, and especially with irrigation, we found fungicide is really protecting our crop from all the disease pressure that we've had. And we've done a lot with that with corn, so we decided to apply it to sorghum. And when we did that, it just made a tremendous difference for us. And so now we treat all of our sorghum with the fungicide treatment, and that's our biggest game changer in our area. Again, farming in the river bottoms area, we have a wide range of soil types in our area, and sorghum seems to fit really well on our tougher soils. And with the ability to be able to plant a little later into the season past corn and to withstand the heat pressure, that's where we really find sorghum is fitting on our farm, and it's doing a very good job for us.
The water availability would speak to that for myself. I don't have the larger wells that a lot of my friends do that raise corn and other crops, and I can take a smaller amount of water, 12 inches I believe is what I listed this year, raise a really nice crop, whereas on a drought year like this, worst in history in our area, a lot of my friends put down 25 to 30 inches on corn and possibly didn't raise any. So to me that means a lot, that I can take a crop that's very drought tolerant. I can use my water when it needs it, can save it when I don't need it, and it'll do a good job for you in very hot, dry conditions.
And so, something I might speak to is the planting window also. There's times we've tried to put a corn crop in, and we were trying out this planter that we upgraded the planter a couple of years ago. The one we traded in, we went for one that's 10 years older. It's early 90s, and it was in good condition, but in trying to get that thing to work for us, we struggled. We could not get this particular acreage planted to corn. And having a big window, the sorghum planting window, was able to get into a sorghum and actually yield. So it all worked out. So the window for us is bigger for getting the sorghum crop in.
I think in my case, I have a B&H cultivator that I really know very well. I use a cultivator. I'm one of the last people in that area to do that. Yes, it's much easier to have a corn or a soybean crop that you can go spray over the top, but I do have a cultivator. It's a high residue cultivator. The weeds that we cannot control pre-emergent, we do run the cultivation system, and we're able to really do a good job there. On the planter, pre-emergent, we like to band on 15, 17 inch band of pre-emergent for broadleaves and grasses. The middles are not, there's no chemical in the middles, so you're saving approximately half the price. Come in there later and cultivate the middles out. That's something we do a little different than some of the farmers in the area.
All the sorghum that we plant on our farm is planted after soybeans, so we have a pretty good spray program on our soybeans. Spray it probably 3 times to keep the weeds down, and then we also use a fall burn down program, and that really keeps the field clean before you go in, and then you can get a good pre-emergence down, and that's where we put it all up front, and it does a good job. Sorghum shoots up, makes a good cover, shades it out, and we usually don't have a problem after that.
So something we've done the last few years is we have, on our fall burn down, we put down some atrazine, about 1 pound in our area, and it has done a real good job of keeping that field clean up until planting time. And this past year, there's a couple of fields that were so clean that I hesitated to even have to burn it down again before we did plant. And
we're very fortunate in Ogletree County to have a large hog production facility that I've recently started using. This year they were fighting over my sorghum. There just wasn't any sorghum in the county. I recently talked to them. They said if every farmer in our county would double their sorghum planting acres, it wouldn't be enough to feed that facility. They ship in a lot of grain from all around, and that's a real important aspect of our local marketing, is that there's 2 folks there that want your sorghum. I also deal with the local co-op, do basis contracts, some forward contracting, and that's just real important to have 2 different folks there, you know, that want your sorghum. They'll basically fight for it. So that's a lot of our marketing there.
With not being very many growers in our area, it's a little tougher, and unlike yours, nobody really wants it. It's a trouble. They have to shut down the line, and they have to clean out their pits. so we have very few elevators we can haul to. We do some selling on the futures market. With being in the river bottoms area, it's kind of hard to sell a lot of your crop up forward because you don't know if you're actually going to get a crop or not. We can lock in the basis, and which we did this year, but most of the time we don't have enough sorghum. We don't raise a lot like we do our corn, so a lot of times it's spot for us. But in the future, I can see us doing more aggressiveness like we do on our corn.
We're fortunate to have an ethanol plant 15 miles from our main location, and I think Steve and I are fortunate to have a brother Jeff back home that has semis and can truck it. It really helps during harvest to have his help on that, and we do some forward contracting, do some basis contracts there, but and then north of us in Nebraska, there's unit trains that run, so we've done pretty good on that. And there's times at the base we'll improve, if they're trying to load a unit train and they know about us, so we've got sorghum in storage that they get a hold of us and then bid it up. We've been on 30-inch rows, and I think Steve and I was talking earlier, our dad was on 30-inch rows. It just seemed like it has worked for us on being on 30-inch rows. We've tried 10-inch, we've tried 20-inch. We always like to use the planter. We do have a drill, air drill on standby. If we get behind or the weather sets in, we will use our air drill. And I must say too, we always try to plant the fuller season milo over the other, mainly because it's got a better root system, a fibrous root, and the stalk, and we have less lodging problems.
We're on 30-inch spacing. One of the things I've seen over time, we tried 20-inch, and the milo would be stressed harder and harder, but I have seen through mistakes on 30-inch, even if you have a planter mess up, you have 60 inches between the row, and you come in there with a test, you can see that milo will compensate. And so we like 30-inch spacing just because it gives the milo more room to grow, gives it more soil water to mine out in the middle of that row. And whereas if you're talking about a lot of residue you're leaving in the middle, there's a lot of good soil moisture storage there. That's one of the things I enjoy about this is we have people that get 7 inches of rainfall, and we got people that get 18 inches of rainfall. So I really enjoy talking to guys about, some people don't want residue in the middle, some people do in areas like I'm from, so that's why we go with 30s.
We're on 30 inches as well, and mainly because that's what our corn planter is set up. We've had some people, we do have a 15-inch split row planter, and our neighbors have planted sorghum within the 15 inches, and they don't seem to be getting the results that we are. My interest more is we've tried twin row corn in our area, and it hasn't done very well. But I think that maybe this year we're going to try some twin row sorghum and up the population maybe 15 to 20% and see how that works. I think that a shorter crop, the greater sunlight interaction with it might make some positive results. So we'll see what happens.
Let's thank him for being a part here today. Monty, John, Otto, and Steve.